Good evening and welcome to DTV, Knoxville's television program for Democrats and by Democrats. Tonight we've got a great show. It is Friday, February the 19th, in the middle of the election campaign. We have a debate between the Hillary supporters and the Bernie supporters, moderated by Knox County Democratic Party Chair Cameron Brooks. Take it away, Cameron.
Welcome everyone tonight to our debate between representatives of the Bernie Sanders for President campaign and Hillary Clinton for President campaign. First, we'd like to have a brief announcement about DTV by former Senator Bill Owen. I thought that was what.
Welcome to DTV. Thank you very much for being here. We have a great debate coming up here tonight, and Cameron, you take it away.
Okay, great. Just some early ground rules. Please turn off your cell phones. You may clap, but please be civil. We're Democrats here. We're not like the other party. I'd like to introduce some distinguished guests tonight. First, a great Democrat that represents us well in Nashville, State Representative Joe Armstrong.
Joe.
I'd like to introduce my Vice Chair of the Knox County Democratic Party, Jackie Clay. And our timekeeper for tonight is Kim Weber. She serves on the Tennessee Democratic Executive Committee for District 7. So a little bit about the format. We're going to have opening statements by representatives of the campaign. I'd like to introduce them to you, working our way left to right. Former Senator Bill Owen. Carrie Likens, who's a communications specialist at the UT School of Agriculture. And both of them will be representing the Hillary campaign. Catherine Harrison, she is a medical professional and founder of the Lady Scouts of Knoxville. And Thomas Carpenter, who's an analytical chemistry PhD candidate at UT. Our questioners tonight are Mark Harmon, who serves on the Tennessee Democratic Executive Committee, and he's a former county commissioner. Mary Hedrick, who's run for Congress. She's a medical professional. We're glad to have her here tonight. And Sylvia Woods, who represents the 6th District on the Tennessee Democratic Executive Committee. Let's start out by having opening statements before the Bernie people. One, the towing costs, deferred to the second half. So we'll start with Senator Owen.
Thank you very much, Cameron, and thank you all for being here. The 2016 election is the most important election since 1968. That is why tonight I want to talk a little bit about the future and a little bit about the past by talking about the lady, the liar, the crook, and the socialist. The lady, of course, is Hillary Clinton, the most qualified, most prepared, non-incumbent to ever run for the President of the United States. Hillary Clinton's career is one of championing human rights, voting rights, personal rights, LGBT rights, workers' rights, every right there is. She has done it. She is the personification of the old saying that it's not how many times you get knocked down that count, it's how many times you get back up and keep fighting. Hillary Clinton never quits fighting for everyday Americans. She never will. And she will be a great president and will continue and build upon the progress of the Obama administration. But let's look at the history of presidential races in the past for guidance on how to vote. The liar. In 1980, President Jimmy Carter ran for re-election against Ronald Reagan and an independent congressman named John Anderson. The result was Ronald Reagan won. Ronald Reagan lied about his administration illegally trading weapons to Iran for money to help CIA-sponsored death squads. At the same time, President Reagan was appointing Justice Anton Scalia to the Supreme Court. The result of the Democratic Party splitting up in 1980 was President Reagan, Judge Scalia, the Bush v. Gore decision, the Iraq invasion, and the world's current security situation. The crook. In 1968, I was too young to vote, but not too young to ride a bus to Indianapolis, Indiana, to campaign for Bobby Kennedy. At that time, America was engaged in the Vietnam War. Bobby Kennedy opposed the war and opposed the draft. On April the 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in Memphis, and Bobby Kennedy spoke for the entire country in Indianapolis and consoled the crowd and helped prevent the riots in Indianapolis that occurred in a lot of other cities. But on June the 5th, 1968, after winning the California primary, Bobby Kennedy was assassinated. In August of 1968, the Democratic National Convention and the Democratic Party was torn apart by the police-instigated rioting on the streets of Chicago. Nixon was elected, the Democratic Party split in two, and Richard Nixon was elected over the longtime and Jon Stewart's good friend, the happy warrior Hubert Humphrey. Again, Nixon was elected. He ended up approving the Watergate break-in, and the lesson of the Democratic Party of being split up, the Republicans won and took the country in the wrong and disastrous direction. The Socialist. In 1934, Upton Sinclair, the great author, ran for governor of California on a socialist platform and won the Democratic nomination with the help of Republicans. Then the attacks started. The Republican support deserted him. The Democratic Party was split, and Sinclair was elected governor. The important thing to remember in this election as we continue this debate, this primary, and this entire election, when Democrats vote, Democrats win. So I hope that we will all learn from history and vote in the primary, vote in the general, and stay involved and vote in every election that comes along. 2016 is way too important to ignore. Thank you.
Thank you. Just as a time check, you have 3 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you. We're moving forward every day, but in moving forward, we must first look at where we started. So let's look back to August 18th, 1920, when the 19th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution was ratified. This amendment gave me and millions of other women the right to vote, and to eventually vote in an election which a woman can become President of the United States of America. My 18th birthday fell 4 days before the general election in 2008, and I didn't squander a second of my 19th Amendment rights. Even now, 96 years later, Hillary Clinton is still fighting for voting rights, making it easier to vote by implementing plans and strategies that will allow automatic voter registration when individuals turn 18, and by allowing early voting to begin 20 or more days before the election, allowing more people to reach the polls and get their voices heard. Hillary Clinton is fighting to protect the rights we already have and then move them forward. This forward motion is true in all factions of her campaign, and today I want to talk a little bit about that forward motion. In 2013, the EPA determined that the U.S. emitted roughly 6,600 metric tons of greenhouse gas. We are a nation too dependent on inefficient energy sources which are harmful to our environment. Climate change is one of the many harmful side effects of the misuse of these resources. Climate change can be seen this year alone in devastating floods and droughts. This culture of inefficient and harmful energy dependency can and will be changed. Her forward motion will push our nation into a future where America can produce clean energy, pushing for alternate energy sources to power every home in the U.S., to clean up U.S. manufacturing, and cut energy waste. I would like to tell you one more story. In August 2009, I enrolled in college knowing I would leave with student debt, and I did. I left with a lot of student debt. But this is not only my story, this is the story of millions of students and graduates across this nation. So let's move forward with a new college compact that states that students can attend a 4-year public college and leave without student debt, and attend community colleges tuition free. This plan also allows students like me to refinance student loans and makes it easier to enroll in an income-based payment so we are never paying more than we can afford. We live in a time of unprecedented changes in culture, communications, and technology. If we're willing to face those changes with the best and brightest ideals of our past, as well as the focus and determination of the future, we can succeed. Henry Ford once said, if everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of itself. Let's move forward together. Let's move forward with Hillary Clinton.
Hi, so I just want to reintroduce myself. I'm Catherine, and I have lived in Knoxville for about the past decade, give or take. And for a lot of that time, I was in school. At first, I went to school, and I didn't really have a clear idea of what I wanted to do. And I ended up taking some gap years and getting a head on my shoulders, which was fantastic. So that way, when I went back, I wasn't just spending money and gaining debt for no reason without a purpose. Since I have been back at school, I actually just took time off and a semester from graduating because I had been so many years without health care. As a non-traditional older student, I can tell you personally how this campaign will affect students like me. Also, as a proud feminist and a woman who supports other women, I can tell you that this campaign should not be swayed by anyone's gender. That shakes the very foundations of feminism as we know them. So I encourage everyone, if you are going to go and vote for the person who represents your beliefs on policies, and not because you think this is a historical election. I will say that I am very proud as a woman to see Hillary Clinton in the race, and I'm proud that we have so many qualified candidates in the Democratic Party right now. I think that's what's really going to drive the voters out. So I'm really just thankful to be a part of this, and I thank the Knoxville Democratic Party for putting it on. So when you hear from me tonight, know that I'm not here to bash Hillary in any way. I'm here to tell you my personal story of why I believe in Bernie and why I think he is the right man to lead us into the next presidency and beyond. And yeah, I look forward to it. Thank you.
My name's Thomas Carpenter, and I want to talk to you guys tonight about what an opportunity we have as Democrats to embrace a populist movement and embrace progressive ideals. Recently, the Republicans have had a populist movement known as the Tea Party, and as much as I disagree with their politics, they succeeded in their goal of obstructing Obama from completing basically any of his policies in his second term. It's time for Democrats to double down on the populist movement and embrace Bernie Sanders. Because the fact of the matter is that we still have 29 million people without health insurance. We have 31 million people who are underinsured, and what that means is that they are still incurring medical bills they cannot pay. The fact is that universal insurance is not the universal health care that Obama wanted. He's not happy with where the Affordable Care Act has taken us, and we need to go further. We cannot start playing defense yet. We need to elect a strong candidate who will push these progressive ideals, because this might be our last chance. So, with that, I wanted to just share how that impacts Tennessee. 2015, 4,000 people in Knoxville alone declared bankruptcy. Of those, 2,000 people cited medical costs as the main contributor for having to declare bankruptcy. 1,000 of those people had health insurance. This is a problem we have to solve. And I'm going to yield the remainder of our time so that we can get into some questions from our panel and have a great discussion tonight.
So each of our questioners will ask a question. You'll have 1 minute to respond, and the other side will have 30 seconds to respond if they wish. So let's get into it. We'll start with Mark Harmon.
Thank you. And my question, I believe, is directed toward Bill. Is that correct?
Yes.
The order is Bill. All right, Bill. One of the slight areas of difference between the two campaigns.
You don't have to start with me if you don't want to.
Well, that's fine. It's always a pleasure, Bill. One of the areas of slight disagreement is about trade treaties. And I was just wondering, should trade treaties include provisions allowing corporations to sue to invalidate U.S. environmental, consumer, and labor regulations?
They should not, and that's one of the reasons that Hillary Clinton has opposed the TPP, because some of the provisions in that trade agreement, proposed trade agreement, allow for this, and that this is one of the things that she is against, she is opposed to. She started out hoping that the TPP would be a good trade agreement. Then she, when the fine print was published, she came out against it.
Any response?
Well, I think for Bernie, he has definitely been against the Trans-Pacific Partnership, as well as NAFTA and the RNTP with China. If you go back, you can see why he stands against it. I mean, I agree that this will include small print that lets corporations work outside the American legal system, and that creates a bulk of problems, but it also could create a loss of jobs and us competing with markets that we cannot compete in. So I think we also need to be wary of that.
Thank you. Ms.
We have
Andrews.
seen over the last 20 years that the middle class has taken a beating, both in numbers shrinking and in the income and asset situation. How would your candidate improve the situation financially for a middle class family?
This is to Thomas or to me?
Well, I believe
It goes to the Sanders campaign.
Oh, would you like to take that, Thomas?
Yeah, absolutely. If we look, 58% of all new wealth has gone to the top 1%. And the only way that we can fix that is by taxes. And the fact of the matter is, what we have to look at is that it's simply an unjust system whenever people are constantly trying to say that America has the highest corporate tax rate among modern countries. But if you look at their effective corporate tax rate, what we have is an effective rate of 13.4% instead of the advertised 35%. So by closing tax loopholes, by forbidding these companies and these billionaire class from hiding their money, they have to pay their fair share.
Response?
We agree.
I've heard that a lot lately.
Oh, we do agree with that. There needs to be closing and tax loopholes to support programs that are going to be in place soon, whether it's on the Bernie side or the Hillary side. But what's important for the working class is these new initiative plans that Hillary Clinton has to support businesses, giving incentives to have on-the-job training or to have simpler taxing for small businesses. These all things will promote the working class and move them up while closing tax loopholes at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sylvia?
Tell us what you understand are the differences between the Clinton policy and the Sanders policy concerning college tuition, and whose policy do you think is attainable?
That's to me. Well, thank you. Sorry about that. What's important here is that college education is too expensive. We all understand that. But what's important in the Hillary Clinton campaign is education cannot be free in all circumstances. We have to contribute our own part, whether that's students working 10 hours a week and getting valuable job experiences, to not having the Pell Grant into your tuition base so that can just go to living expenses. This continues onward to having better family contribution lists. Their campaign obviously has this idea of free tuition for everyone, and that's just not the case. It can't be funded in a way that is sustainable, and that's what we're looking at.
So I would actually like to comment on that. I read a fun fact that said in 1978, a minimum wage worker could pay for college in one summer. Now, if you take a minimum wage worker today, it takes them 1 year at least just to pay tuition alone. That shows you just how expensive our college tuition has gotten for the everyday middle class person. And I think while Bernie wants people to have free college, he also wants to raise minimum wage and provide people with incentives that will help them pay for college in other ways, just instead of giving it away.
Thank you. Back to Mark.
Okay. I believe now for Thomas, correct? I believe that's the order we're following.
Well, no, it's
No, it'd be
to,
Catherine.
To
I can
Catherine.
take it.
Or Thomas, depending on how you feel.
Okay.
How do you expect the Republicans will stereotype and misrepresent your candidate, and how do you plan to respond?
Would you like to take it, or do you want me to?
Go for it.
So I think we can probably already see how the Republicans mischaracterize a lot of things. And so it's no big surprise that they will probably latch on to the word socialist. But I would urge people to look at Bernie's record. Actions, to me, speak louder than words. And so in his over 40-year political career, you can see exactly how he's voted. And when you break down the issues vote by vote, or what he's done for his community, you can see how strongly he fights for the everyday man. And I think that those actions will speak louder than the words that the Republicans are trying to characterize him as.
And also, I'd like to point out that Bernie Sanders will be able to say that some of the most influential Democratic socialists that have been in America are both Dr. Martin Luther King and Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
and in response, Hillary Clinton has spent almost half her life fighting Republicans and responding to Republican attacks. Most recently, 11 hours in front of the Benghazi hearing that she devastated the entire Republican majority. So I think Hillary Clinton does not have to do much to alter any responses. All she has to do is stand up and tell the truth like she always has.
Thank you.
I believe I'll start with Carrie. The question revolves around jobs in the United States. How will your candidate keep jobs in the United States, and how will your candidate create new jobs?
Keeping jobs in the United States is obviously #1 priority for every candidate, or it should be. Now the plan is to invigorate small businesses, like I said before, by making taxes simpler and having a targeted tax strategy for these small businesses. Because if you ask me, the 1%, they already have theirs. But to create jobs, all of this, let's take, just for example, this green initiative. Say her plan is to have every U.S. home powered by solar panels. Someone has to make those solar panels. All right, those jobs could be in the U.S. and to create an industry that keeps America sustainable. You have anything to add, Bill?
Just exactly what Carrie said about the Hillary Clinton plan for economic opportunity for the vast majority of Americans is just that, to create more jobs, and how she's going to do it is through green power, where she told me to stop.
All right. Bernie Sanders has an excellent plan of not only keeping jobs in America, but creating more of them. One of those plans is by spending $1 trillion on rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, such as bridges and interstates. In addition, Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All is small business friendly, because now they no longer have to provide health insurance. They can reinvest that. Also, by raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, people have more money to spend, and that will give businesses more capital to invest.
Thank you. Sylvia.
Okay. Every candidate says they're going to break the stranglehold of special interest in Washington. If nobody has been able to do it before, why do you think your candidate could?
So I'm going to take this. I'm going to go back to what I said about actions speaking louder than words. Now, a lot of you probably know that Bernie is a fan of campaign finance reform. He doesn't just preach these words, he lives by them. If you know Bernie, you know that he's not taking money from super PACs, he's taking money from everyday contributors like you and I. So that can mean an average below $30 for each person. Little steps can make huge differences. And I think Bernie's campaign is a huge symbol of just how we can reform with our actions. And that's why I appreciate how he runs his campaign personally. Would you like to add anything? Okay.
No.
And the Hillary Clinton campaign is receiving small donor contributions as well. Bernie has received over 1.5 million contributors. Hillary's received 1 million contributions from 1 million people. This is a great testament to the Democratic Party and to the democratic process, and so I think it bodes us well in the future. for winning this election, this critical election in 2016.
Speaking of Secretary Clinton, she recently was in Flint, in Michigan. And I'm just wondering, should Michigan Governor Rick Snyder be charged with a crime in connection with the lead poisoning of the children of Flint?
Yes. Is that question to me?
I believe it was to your team.
Okay. In my opinion, yes. I think that he is guilty of a number of crimes and should be indicted. This is an outrage. It is a true outrage, and the truth is, it's not limited to Flint. And what is going on, and I think Catherine mentioned the rebuilding the infrastructure of America. What is going on right now in this country is that our infrastructure is crumbling, and we do need to be rebuilding the infrastructure of America, and that is a tenet of both the Sanders campaign, the Clinton campaign, and the Democratic Party.
I would add on that, not only should the people responsible in Flint be prosecuted for their gross negligence with the public health crisis, the bankers on Wall Street should be prosecuted for their gross negligence that caused the housing bubble, which displaced a lot of people in Flint, Michigan.
I believe this goes to the Sanders team. What is your candidate's position on both corporate and billionaire influence in politics, both as campaign donations and as lobbying access?
I think that Bernie Sanders has been perfectly clear about how he feels about billionaires. The fact of the matter is that we have too much money in politics, not just secret, unaccounted money. We have too much money in politics. These corporations, these billionaires, are smart people. They are making business decisions. This is an investment for them. Whenever they pay a politician, they get something in return. As Bernie Sanders said, the American people are not stupid.
So I would just like to add to that. I think Bernie, his campaign is not only a testament here at home, how he fights to take the money out of politics and sway the corporations from making all the decisions, but I think the TPP and his stance on it really show how he's also fighting globally for those same things.
That was a great answer. Hillary Clinton also has a similar action plan to really make the funding of campaigns transparent and close these loopholes of lobbyists and us paying people. It is a tragedy that politics can get a little dark in some campaigns, but the thing is to make the funding transparent and make how you get it transparent by closing these loopholes.
Okay, and I'm not sure which one it goes to at this point, but both of them can.
Clinton, you're on the Clinton campaign first.
Okay, either one. Why do you think that Bernie Sanders decided to run as a Democrat, since he has been an independent for years, and does it make a difference to you or other voters?
I think he decided to run as a Democrat because that's the only way that he thought he could win. There's nothing wrong with that. Bernie says that he's trying to lead a political revolution, and some of his critics call it an adolescent rebellion. I call it participatory democracy. There's nothing wrong with what Bernie is doing. We welcome him to the Democratic Party. I think this may be the first time he's ever voted in a Democratic primary. So, that's one of the reasons that I am supporting Hillary Clinton, is because she has a long track record of trying to help Democrats up and down the line, but we certainly welcome new people into the Democratic Party.
I think that's a little disingenuous, because the fact of the matter is that Bernie Sanders, for his entire time in both the House and the Senate, he has caucused with the Democrats. So if we're suggesting that he should be punished because he didn't have a membership card, I say that we nominate the best candidate that the Democratic Party has. And he has done the work for the Democratic Party. He didn't have a membership card, but he was there and he was doing the work.
But he's running. That's true, but he has. My point is that
Do we
he
have
run
do we have
against-
rebuttals? I'm sorry that
But we could open it up and have.
Well, I'll wait.
I'm going to make an executive decision.
I'm just
Bill's got 30. The Sanders camp has 30.
perfect.
So, Bill, go for
Okay.
it.
My only point is that Bernie has run against Democrats. He's never tried to be a Democrat before. As a candidate, has run against Democrats, has campaigned against Democrats, and now he wants to be in the Democratic Party, and we welcome him to it. I'm not criticizing him for it. I welcome him to it.
Well, that's in line with the support that we've seen from the DNC so far. So that's the answer I expected.
All right. A little switch into a policy gear here for the Sanders campaign. Our friends in Chattanooga enjoy 1 gig-a-second fast wireless service through a municipal program. But here in Tennessee and in Washington, there is blowback and trying to stop this. And I'm just wondering, on both the political, technical, and public investment side, how would your candidate's administration get the rest of the U.S. up to that speed rather than the much slower speeds compared to the rest of the developed world we're struggling through?
Well, I think Bernie is a huge supporter of social programs and social enterprises for the public. So I think this is a fine example of just what we can do. I know that Chattanooga has boomed because of this internet. A lot of business has moved to the area. And so when we do invest in our technology and make it the best that we can and accessible to everyone, we see great benefits in the community, in business, small business, big business. And I think a lot of the blowback is probably coming from the large corporations that are losing the money because they just can't compete. And so I think, if you know Bernie's message, he'll stand up to these people and he'll tell them just like it is. And he'll fight for people to have access to the best technologies that we can.
I'm going to take this one. Internet is a municipality. It's become commonplace for everyone. Everyone has a phone. Everyone has a computer. All right, you're on the internet, and it's important that we have these rates of higher speeds. It's important that they are at a fair and accessible price to everyone. The key is to make public investment. If we look at green energy, we had to take government public investment to move it forward. Just like we invested in solar cities, and now Tesla's created and we move on. This is how we have to treat the internet. In this world of information, we have to bring it forward.
To the Clinton campaign.
Public investment. If we look at green energy, we had to take government public investment to move it forward. Just like we invested in solar cities, and now Tesla's created and we move on. This is how we have to treat the internet. In this world of information, we have to bring it forward.
To the Clinton campaign, we anticipate there will be more female voters in both the primary and in the general election. What does your candidate offer that's beneficial to the females in America?
If I take this one? Well, women's rights. I mean, we're not trying to be the feminist movement. You shouldn't vote for Hillary Clinton because she's a woman. That's obviously a basis of inequality. But Hillary Clinton's campaign shows that we are going to erase the pay gap between men and women. We're going to, by just showing transparency for them, we're going to pass the Fairness Act to give us the tools to fight discrimination. I think this is what women are voting for. We're trying to make child care affordable. 25% increase in child care in the past decade. That is an irresponsible use. You shouldn't have to worry about how to take care of your children. Women's health and reproductive rights should stand strong, and we should fight the Republicans who are trying to defund Planned Parenthood, which takes care of cancer screenings, as well as child care. What's important here is that people are voting for these women's rights to be upheld. And I think that's why women are going to the polls.
So I think a lot of Bernie's policies actually help women. If you look at raising the minimum wage to $15, that means that 2/3 of the minimum wage workers who are women will have a chance to rise out of poverty or the to a different class. If you look specifically at his health care, by women having access to health care and reproductive health rights, they will be able to make better decisions for themselves and their families. And he also wants women to be able to raise those families and to have 12 weeks of paid family vacation to help care for a new child.
Sylvia?
Why do you think Bernie Sanders, or Senator Sanders, let's be polite with this, appeals to so many young people?
Because young people are still, we still have faith in Obama's message of hope and change. And Bernie Sanders has been very consistent with that. And unfortunately, the Republicans have been able to block a lot of that hope and change that Barack Obama wanted. And so now what Senator Sanders wants is a political revolution. For everyone to turn out, let's replace these obstructionist Republicans with progressives who can get things done in Congress. And what we're looking at is a real chance for a political revolution. And what this takes is not just Bernie Sanders, it takes all of us to not only turn up in 2016, but in 2018 for the midterms.
I couldn't agree with him more. It's exactly right. We need a progressive who can get things done, and that's Hillary Clinton.
I suppose it's time for a foreign policy question. And China has been making man-made islands and then making territorial claims around them. What should the U.S. be doing in response to Chinese expansionism? And aren't we in a bit of a quandary because the State Department, including Undersecretary Clinton, has refused to sign the Law of the Sea Treaty, the very thing that we could be using to oppose this?
Yes, you're exactly right. These are the Spratly Islands. They have come in. They're taking small atolls in the Pacific Ocean, in the South China Sea, and dumping garbage in there and building them up, landfill type things. And now they're bringing in warships. The United States is now flying military flights over these islands in a contentious way that's opposed by the Chinese. But we are doing this to emphasize that we are not happy with what China is doing. What should they be doing? And the Law of the Seas is something that is a way to address this. However, the Republicans in the Senate have been blocking the signing of the Law of the Seas. There's not much that Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama has been able to do about it because we haven't had the control of the Senate that is required to ratify the treaty.
I think that we have to rely heavily on our allies in the area. We have to rely on Japan and South Korea because they are the most put at risk by these actions. So we have to rely on our allies. We have to work closely with them in order to get anything done in the area. Anything that we try and do unilaterally will not be successful. It will only provoke China and North Korea. And also, on the hesitancy of the State Department to do anything here, they also waited a very long time to classify Boko Haram as a terrorist group.
Staying with foreign policy, we know that the Sanders and Clinton campaigns disagree with respect to the Syria no-fly zone. Why do you think your candidate on the Sanders team, why do you think your candidate demonstrates a stronger commander-in-chief role, and for Clinton, yours, the commander-in-chief? So thinking about just the no-fly zone in Syria, what would you say about their commander-in-chief?
Is this going to Sanders?
Sanders first.
Okay. I believe that even though Bernie may not have held such high-profile positions that everyone would know him from his years of service in the Senate, he's had a lot of foreign policy experience. Now, when it comes to the whole crisis in that area, when it comes to the Arab Spring and the rising that led to a lot of the situation in the area, Bernie, to me, has exemplified fantastic foresight in knowing that regime change will not solve problems. So when you go into these areas, we have to be mindful of everyone in the area that's involved, the citizens of that state, the different powers that be that are fighting. And we have to remember that while we want to help, it doesn't solely fall on us. And I think that Sanders will be able to work with the powers that be in that area to bring a peaceful solution.
Hillary Clinton is one of the most traveled secretaries of state that our nation has ever seen. The most involved in foreign affairs. These take time, and this takes connections. And you're right, you have to let the powers that be sometimes happen. But sometimes you have to step in and see what those policies are and take action to move forward. Now, with her foreign policy experience, I think that she can create a pathway for conversations to lead to peace.
And the no-fly zone is should have been enacted when Hillary recommended it 2 years ago.
Great. Sylvia?
Tell us about a position that your candidate holds with which you disagree, and explain why you continue to support that candidate despite that position.
This is to Clinton first, I believe.
Yep. Wipe the brow.
I'm sure there are some, but I haven't found one yet.
I don't think Bernie Sanders goes far enough in current student debt reform. I would love to see a plan proposed where we truly get profiteering off of student loans away. Because the fact of the matter is, even if he does accomplish tuition-free colleges, current debt is not going to miraculously disappear. So I would love to see a bit more aggressive on more than simply refinancing, but rather proposals such as not making compound interest, but rather paying down principal before interest.
Mark?
Each of your candidates has proposed changes to the tax code to make it fairer, more progressive, rises with ability to pay. This is going to be a fight with Congress. So, of all the things that have been proposed by your candidate, what do you think should be that candidate's highest priority? Wall Street speculation tax, raising the cap on the Social Security tax? Where do you go first when it comes to making the tax code fairer?
Closing loopholes. Again, the effective corporate tax rate is 13.4%. It's advertised as 35%, but there are enough ways to game the system where these corporations don't pay nearly their fair share. Point to Warren Buffett, who paid a lower tax rate than his secretary did. This doesn't make sense. That's where you go first. That is doable.
I would like to add that I think any policy you put through to Congress might be a fight in the first place, so that shouldn't discourage you from having ideals that you believe in.
Oh, okay. The tax code is wrong. There's a lot that's inefficient with it. The 1% are not getting taxed enough, and we're getting taxed too much. But that's where you're right. We have to close these tax loopholes, which can fund other programs like the New College Compact. That's how we get things done. But, you're right, it does take someone to stand up to Congress and someone who's been a part of the system, which both of our candidates are. And I think this is not just a Democratic problem, it's also a Republican problem as well.
Great. Thank you.
And I think I'm to the Clinton campaign first. I have not heard Secretary Clinton cast aspersions on NAFTA, and yet we currently have a $15 billion lawsuit by TransCanada for our tax dollars because we didn't build the XL pipeline. That's out of NAFTA. Ontario was not allowed to implement a solar panel factory that let their local panels be purchased because it was challenged under NAFTA. So has she spoken at all about NAFTA, and then what do we do about it, Clinton?
I'm not aware of whether she's spoken about NAFTA, but all of these trade agreements are two-edged swords. They have some good things and some bad things. By and large, NAFTA has helped in many ways keep prices down on a lot of the goods and services that we receive. And it has caused some problems and some dislocation problems, and that's why there was provisions in the bill that allowed for training purposes. Now, should it have gone further? Yes. Should we require the same type of labor relations that people enjoy in this country in other countries? Yes, we should. But where Secretary Clinton and where Hillary Clinton has come down, I think, is that NAFTA was passed under Bill Clinton, and it helped improve the economy at the time in America, and we've benefited from it.
So while you might be able to say that NAFTA improved some areas, overall it lost us over 700,000 jobs is what it comes down to, and that's in the service sector and the manufacturing sector. And when we look at big trade deals such as this and the TPP that allow corporations to operate outside the legal American system, we don't have reign on them in a court, we don't have reign on them in who we elect, we have no way of policing them. And that's what the problem boils down to, is we have to be able to somehow police such trade deals and make sure that these kind of meaningless court cases don't pop up where the taxpayers pay the money.
Sylvia.
I want to ask about Social Security. There's a lot of people in this country that depend on Social Security, and I'd like to know your candidate's position on Social Security.
I've lost track. Are we here again?
Yes.
Okay. My apologies. Senator Sanders has consistently fought to keep Social Security afloat, and he's pointed out to the fact that currently it's impossible to live on Social Security alone. And unfortunately, a lot of our seniors who depend on it don't have enough savings to supplement it. So I believe that Senator Sanders has been very consistent in not only defending it, but willing to expand it.
I just want to add, as a woman especially, you should be very concerned about this issue because older women are more likely to live in poverty than men. So as a woman, this is an issue that affects us greatly.
And Hillary Clinton has been consistent in supporting Social Security, in fighting the Republicans who, when they wanted to privatize Social Security, Hillary Clinton has led the fight to protect Social Security and will continue to do so.
We're going to do one more question, and then we'll go on to final statements from the candidates.
Okay. Your personal preference for the first executive order or law introduced by your candidate?
My personal preference would be for Hillary Clinton to continue the Dreamer and the immigration policies that President Obama has so courageously promulgated.
Agree.
I'm going to preface this with, I do not use marijuana. But I think that in order to address racial justice issues, that marijuana needs to be descheduled. It needs to be on the path to legalization, but I think that not only addresses issues such as opioid addiction, but it also addresses racial justice.
Okay, great. Well, we are going to go into our final statements. Each of our four panelists will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Tell me what's fair here, because the Clinton people started, should the Bernie people start, or
No,
we didn't flip a coin on it,
So
right?
it should go here and then.
Okay, great.
Right. No.
So, Bill, do you want to go first?
Oh, I'll go first, yeah.
Okay, great.
First, I would like to thank everyone for their time. This is an important time in our nation, as is every election, local or national. It's important that we look at what's best for our nation and for the people, and the opportunities to have the greatest impact on the people who live in it. I grew up in a small town where Main Street was the only street, and I couldn't imagine the hardware store on the corner ever closing its doors until it did. Hillary will protect our small businesses by implementing initiatives that have a targeted tax relief strategy and simplifying taxes. Hillary Clinton is the spark that ignites forward motion on both policies, domestic and foreign. We must stand with her as we move forward with a national health care system that is self-sustaining. We must stand with her as we erase the pay gap, protect and defend women's rights, and provide adequate leave and compensation for men and women to take care of their families when they're in need. We must move forward with plans that allow every American to succeed on the basis of equality alone. I would like to paraphrase the words of FDR. Let us never forget the government is ourselves and not some alien power over us. The ultimate rulers of our democracy are the voters of this country, so let's get out and let's vote.
I thought he was going back and forth. My bad.
The 2016 election is the most important and most critical election since 1968. It's imperative that we elect a Democrat. Republican-appointed Supreme Court justices have been in the majority since 1972. The result has been stagnant wage growth and the shrinking of the American middle class. With the passing of Justice Scalia, a new era is upon us. Make no mistake about it. The rigged political system has been defined, interpreted, and enforced by the Republican-dominated Supreme Court. Think Citizens United, think Gore v. Bush, think Heller v. Washington, D.C., think hundreds more lower-profile cases that have eroded the rights of ordinary working Americans and empowered corporate America. Presidential elections are about a vision for the future. My vision for the future, and I hope yours is, President Hillary Rodham Clinton working with Senator Bernie Sanders and Senator Elizabeth Warren in a Democrat-controlled United States Senate. Now that is a strong team for a progressive America.
So I'll close by saying that I agree with Carrie and Bill. I believe that this is a vote that the people need to stand up and win this election for the people, and big money should stay out of it, and elections should not be bought. And I also think that we have to rig political system. And I think by allowing the elections and showing that we stand up and won't let them be bought, we send the message that we're tired of politics as usual. Thanks. Personally, I want a candidate that stands up for everybody, not just me as a woman, not me as a college student, not me as a millennial, but everyone. I want someone who will stand up for civil rights, just like he did in the 60s and 70s when he was arrested for protesting segregation in Chicago. I want a president who will stand up for women's rights and allow me the right to choose for myself what happens to my body and what I can do if I choose to have a family, and that I will have time to take off work and raise a kid if that is my choice. I want a candidate who fights for LGBT issues, just like he did when he was the mayor of Burlington in Vermont and passed many ordinances for the housing discrimination that was happening there. I want a candidate that really just sticks up for the everyday person, just like you and I am. I don't want someone who's there for special interest, who's going to take money from lobbyists. I want somebody who has been fighting consistently the same fight and will continue to fight for you and I.
Vote. In Tennessee, early voting is open until February 23rd. Most polling locations are open to 6 o'clock. I voted today for Bernie Sanders because I truly believe that he is the candidate that can embrace the populist movement and take us forward. If you believe that, this America's good enough, vote for Hillary Clinton. I don't think she's as progressive as Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is going to take us into the future. No longer will we have to say, we could be like Denmark. We could be like Germany. No, because I believe that America's the greatest country, and it's time we start acting like it. It's time that we start giving healthcare as a right, education as a right, We have to be competitive globally, and these are the only way to do it. One person, one vote. Unless you're a superdelegate, and then your vote counts for about 9,840 people. Thank you for your time, and God bless America.
So we got, you guys ran through your closing. You each had 2 minutes, and we have a lot of time left. But we're going to close out tonight. Just a couple of things. Early voting is going on. If you look at the statistics here in Knox County, Republicans are overwhelmingly outvoting us, over 2-1. And that's something that we need to rectify in the next days. Raise your hand if you've early voted yet. If you haven't, go down there tomorrow, grab a friend, let's get some more Democrats in there. And the other thing is, down ballot races are just as important as the presidential race. We've got great candidates, Democratic candidates for county commission in most districts this year. That the race will be in August. You must come out and vote then. These folks are progressives. They're putting themselves on the line. We need to support them. The second thing is we've got great state house candidates running in November, and more people are going to be signing up in the weeks ahead. One courageous person that's doing that is running in House District 18, Brandy Price, who's here tonight. We're very grateful for her. I guess the final thing is I want to ask the crowd tonight, regardless of who wins, are you committed to supporting the Democratic nominee come November?
Yeah.
So again, get your neighbors, get your friends. Let's erase this 2-1 and turn it into a 2-2, and then win it in August and win it in November. Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching DTV's debate between the Bernie supporters and the Hillary supporters. This is a great election year. Please go vote this primary, vote in August, vote in November, vote every time, vote Democratic. You know, when Democrats vote, Democrats win, and that's the important thing. Thank you for watching DTV. Please tune in next Friday.